Hello, and welcome to a brand new day of free-to-play here on Magic the Gathering Arena. Get the dish with the latest. Get the dish on the latest with me, Lord Rumfish. So, March of the Machine has finally come to the quick draft queue. For those of you who are not as experienced with draft, don't feel as willing to commit to a premier draft, you get to take your time because you're drafting with the AI. In a quick draft, you have all the time in the world to think about your choices, review what you've picked so far. You can take as long as you like in a quick draft to do your picks, build your deck. Then you'll actually play against players once you've done the quick draft. And it only costs half as much to enter. The prize support's not as good. But that being 5,000 gold or 750 gems, you can get in twice as many drafts, which gives you, kind of twice as much drafting experience with the set. I think it's a very useful tool, and as a content creator, it gives me a lot of time to discuss concepts in draft. So, all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and I think we're going to drop some gems here. Actually, I've been doing pretty well in my limited events recently. I've got some gems to spare. I'll go ahead and drop some gems on this one. So a concept that I have talked about in the past, I'm going to bring it up again since I've got time to discuss it here, is potential. There are different things that make a card valuable to a deck. You're probably familiar with tempo, right? Making the most efficient use of your mana, being able to answer the opponent's threats more mana efficiently than they do, getting under a slow start with a lot of small aggressive creatures. I mean, tempo can mean other things as well. Like when you think of a tempo deck, you might think of someone who's like tapping your creatures and bouncing them back to your hand. It's just being more efficient speedily with your mana and your turns than the opponent is being. It doesn't matter if they have more card advantage than you if they're dead. Then card advantage is another big concept. It's a very important one. It's starting to be replaced a little bit more recently with position on the board. It seems like in more recent standards that board position is becoming king more so than card advantage. The cards in your hand can't save you if you can't cast them. At least not at a rapid enough clip. But card advantage is still an important idea, and it's very important in limited. Anytime that you are exchanging one of your resources for more than one of your opponent's resources, or if you just straight up, have a card that gets you more cards than you started with, right? The Invasion of Vryn, you're going to draw 3 and discard 1, and that means you are up 2 cards compared to where you started. You have 2 more cards in your hand than when you had the Invasion of Vryn in your hand. And you got to look at 3 cards and get rid of the card in your hand that was the weakest. So that's card selection, but actually going up on cards, having more, is card advantage. There are many ways you can get card advantage. It's hard to get into all the weeds on it. And then a concept that I like to get into, there's also synergy. Synergy would be, for example, if you're in Phyrexia, all will be one, you've drafted up a poison deck, then you get some bomb rare, something that's incredibly powerful, but it doesn't contribute anything to the poison deck that you've drafted. At this point, maybe the synergies of your deck matter more than the individual strength of a card that doesn't work with those synergies. And then there's potential. Potential is sort of I don't know if anyone else out there has talked about this in the way that I talk about it. Maybe someone has at some point over Magic's history. But when I say potential, I mean the potential of a card to win the game by itself, making a few reasonable assumptions about your deck. Generally, you can assume that your deck is full of creatures and full of lands. So, potential asks the question, how well does this card win the game by itself? And Ozolith is a tricky one. So, by itself, this card can come down and start putting 2 +1/+1 counters on your creatures at sorcery speed. Has an initial investment of 2 mana, and then every time after that is 2 mana to activate. So, you could think of it as being a 4 mana spell at first, but then it's 2 mana every activation after that. It does put power and toughness onto the field, but it does not give you a creature. In that regard, you could kind of think of it a little bit like equipment or vehicles. It's giving you this kind of permanent bonus that sticks around in play, but it's not a creature itself. So you need a high creature count to pair with this. So, Ozolith, as far as its clock. Probably the fastest way to look at the clock of Ozolith would be to imagine that you have a 1-power creature that you play on turn 1. On turn 2, you play Ozolith. You attack for 1. On turn 3, you put 2 counters on that creature, and you attack for 3. Now the opponent's taken 4 damage on turn 3. On turn 4, it's a 5/5. I take another 5 damage there, they've taken 9. On turn 5, it's a 7/7. I take another 7 damage, that's 16. And the turn after that, they're dead. So it's a big investment of mana, but it's worth it. The clock on Ozolith is just ridiculous. The amount of power and toughness that this shoots out onto the battlefield is spectacular. And making creatures larger also makes it more likely they are able to attack, where they can make profitable trades, where they can crash in and, trade with more things, trade with bigger things. The opponent can't afford to block them, or they have to chump block them. It is not just a damage metric, but it's also something that helps you to attack, the power and the toughness both. So I would say Ozolith is very good, and the other cards in this pack are going to have to impress me. Not for me not to pick this. Invasion of Vryn. This is card advantage. If you flip it into the overloaded majoring, then that could double up something like a creature spell, where it doubles the potential of another one of your cards for 1 mana. That's pretty cool. I'm not saying it's not worth running, but its potential is kind of low. You need 4 mana to get it down, then you have to deal 4 damage to it, and then you need a spell that has good potential that you want to copy. It's not nothing, it has more than 0 potential, but I would say the potential is a little low. I like it though as a card. Finn the Fangbearer. Finn's actually not the worst clock. He sort of has like a Toxic 2. Or Poisonous 2, if anyone remembers Future Sight. Not sure why they didn't bring back that keyword. Anyway. So he's a 1/3 Death Touch for 2, which is a good body. As far as a clock on the opponent, every time a creature with Death Touch deals damage to the player, they get 2 poison counters. He includes himself. So you play him on turn 2, and 5 turns after that, he's won the game. That's by turn 7. That's an incredibly lethal clock for a 2-drop. Now, the problem with Finn in this format is that he's a bit insular. There's not a lot of other Death Touch creatures. If they deal with the Finn, they probably are not going to die to poison. So the clock is not quite as impressive as it looks. But still, Finn is a very good body on the battlefield, and with just the right draw or just an unlucky enough opponent, you can pressure them to the point that Finn can get a poison win. Notvold Hermit, this this card is pretty amazing. So, comes down on turn 4. Turn 5, you have enough mana to flip it. So it becomes a 5/5 the turn you could attack with it, but it makes another one of your creatures into a 5/5. Now, that creature might have had some potential on its own already. You know, maybe you don't have a 1/1 in play. Maybe you've got a 3/3 and you turn it into a 5/5 and that's still a boost, but maybe it's not a, you know, a whole 5 power and toughness of boost. On the other hand, you could have a 0/0 incubator that flipped into a Phyrexian. That would give the full 10 power and toughness boost that this card can do. I think the green signpost uncommon that gets +1 for every transformed creature, that flyer, I think it would take the full power toughness boost here as well. There are ways you can do it. So, the very first time that it attacks on turn 5, if you sink the mana into it and you have another creature, it can attack for 10, and then on turn 6 it's just lethal. That is potentially an even faster one than Ozolith. It's not as flexible, though. I would say it's easier to disrupt. Ozolith is like a... They kill one thing, that's fine, you just start putting the counters on another thing. Ozolith is very dangerous. Notvold Hermit is too, though. Turn 6 win for a 4-drop is a heck of a clock. Marshal of Zhalfir, whether the clock is good on this card or not depends on if you're in the knight deck. It requires synergy. Giving all of your other knights +1/+1, well, if all of your other creatures do happen to be knights and you have 3 of them, then when you play this guy down, you've added 5 power and toughness to the board, plus he can tap to remove blockers out of the way, which very much increases the clock and your ability to connect with the opponent or your battles. It requires synergy, though. And as far as potential goes, it's like you have to make a judgment call. Potential would say to pick one of these things that are better in a vacuum. Synergy would say to pick the Marshal of Zhalfir because you can build the deck. It's up to you. It's up to you. I don't like to take 2-color cards as my first pick unless they're incredibly, incredibly powerful. Knights are a good, strong draft archetype. I don't think I would take them over, like, the Ozolith. As far as whether I'd take it over the Notvold Hermit? I don't have as much experience with the Knight deck as I do with green-blue. I know green-blue is very effective. So if I took the Knight, it would be to, like, experiment and learn about the, you know, the Knights. But that's probably not what I would choose. I'd probably choose something that left my colors more open. Stormclaw Rager is a great card. So, you know, 2/2 for 3 is nothing special, but you can sacrifice things to grow this and to draw cards. That's amazing. So, potential doesn't care about card advantage, but it doesn't hate card advantage. If the two of them can play nicely together, then you got a good deal going. So if you've got some little fodder like the 1/1 lifelink vampire can pay 1 black, exile it from the graveyard to incubate, that would be 2 triggers for this. It would let you draw 2 cards off of that thing and its token that you sacrificed, and get 2 counters onto this. So if you have the synergies, again this is kind of a synergy play, then this is an incredibly strong card. If you don't have the synergies, it's still probably useful. You know, you might decide that you do in fact want to draw a card, you have something you feel you could get rid of, but if you're not in that archetype, then your permanents are a little bit more dear to you. And it's a little bit harder of a choice to do this, and it's only at sorcery speed. Overall, I would say this is a pretty high potential card. You need the synergies built into it, but assuming that, maybe you could run with the assumption that you could get about one counter on this every turn. It takes an investment of mana, and you have to play out other things to give it food to keep going. But the card draw means that you keep finding more stuff. So this card definitely snowballs, and it has good potential. Alabaster Host Intercessor. The potential on this card's not that high. A 3/4 for 6 is pretty low. The thing that's neat about it is it removes a creature from the other side of the battlefield. That could be a blocker, so it can let you get in for damage more easily. It could be something that's threatening you that you just need to get it off the field to stabilize and survive. Either way, this is a good card. It's a good card. Just because the potential on it's not that high doesn't mean it's, not an unplayable card. But its clock is slow for its mana cost. Has good board impact, good effect that it's doing. The plane cycling is nice. Overall, it's a great card. Potential-wise is low. I wouldn't not take it for that reason, though. Plus, having a removal spell that has any potential attached to it is really cool. Most good removal spells don't have 0 potential. This has some. This has more than 0. And that actually makes it pretty useful. Shapecraft, no potential. This is just like a combat trick, draws you a card. Can't win the game by itself. Corrupted Conviction, no potential. It's, like a synergy piece and a card advantage piece for an Aristocrat's Sacrifice deck. Vanquish the Weak, no potential. Right, this is a removal spell that does nothing to win you the game. This one could do something to help you win the game. It can attack and block. Beamtown Beatstick, somewhat low potential, but it's neat. +1 power is not nothing. Menace is definitely not nothing. Menace can sometimes put the opponent in a hard position where they either can't block or they make a trade they didn't want to make. The treasure tokens are nice too. Extra mana, it helps offset the equip cost. It can also just kind of ramp you and fix your mana and your colors. This is better than it looks. I don't think you run more than 1 or 2 pieces of equipment most of the time, unless you get the red-white archetype and you get all of the funky, bonus sheet legends and stuff, and then you can actually make an equipment deck. Coming in hot, no potential. Redcap Heel Slasher, decent. 3/4 for 4 is a fair card. Not the best. First Strike is a useful ability, and being able to give its counter to something else and give it First Strike for a turn kind of gives it a point of haste, and makes that other creature much more likely to connect in combat. So, I would say this is a fair card. Square deal, nothing exciting. Timberland Ancient, square deal. Pretty good. So, 6/5 reach trample for 6. That's about on rate. About what you want for 6 mana. The trample in particular is very nice. The reach is also very relevant for keeping you alive. And it has forest cycling. So overall, I'd say this is a very, very fair card at 6. And this format's a little slower compared to Phyrexia All Will Be One. You can definitely run this card. And Bloodfell Caves. No potential, it's color fixer. Okay, I'm going to take the Ozolith here. I like the flexibility on it. I believe technically the clock on the Notvold Hermit is a little faster. There are also some things that could be really nasty with enough synergy in place, like the Marshal and the Stormclaw Rager. But the Ozolith, it pairs with all the other creatures in your deck. It's harder to disrupt than the Hermit is. I just think it's a really, really strong option here. And if for some reason you didn't need it, you could cycle it, but I think in Limited, you almost always are going to want this. Okay. Norn's Inquisitor on its own represents 4 power and toughness for 4 mana. You get to pay it in installments, that's nice. So it actually comes down faster, right, than a 4/4 for 4. On turn 2, you can play the Inquisitor. On turn 3, you can transform the Incubator and attack for 4 on turn 3. So the clock is actually quite good on Norn's Inquisitor. 5 turns of taking 4 damage kills the opponent, so much like Finn the Fangbearer. This one, I think the synergies are a little stronger on than with Finn, although the synergy you don't see with Finn is he's good with all the green fight spells, and your creature deals damage equal to its power to something. So Finn's good in different ways. Also trades up with higher mana value things on blocks. But Norn's Inquisitor can give you synergy bonuses with all of your other incubators. And it also synergizes with other creatures that flip, transform, puts counters on them. So this is a really strong card, just all the way around. Pretty flexible, pretty useful. The Guardian is okay. It's a 2/2 for 2 for a long while. Then eventually, you get to turn it into a 3/3 that makes another 3/3 copy when it attacks. Let's math it out. So, 2/2 for 2. Turn 3 attacks for 2. Turn 4 attacks for 2. So that's 4 damage. Turn 5, it starts attacking for 6. So another 6 damage would bring the opponent to 10 on turn 5, then 16 on turn 6, and then dead on turn 7. So that's not bad. It's not bad. You have to wait until later in the game in order to do this. And by the time you get to that point later in the game, the opponent might be able to pretty handily block and kill a 3/3 on the ground. So you might only get that attack in once. It doesn't have any special evasion. Overall, the clock is good, though. So this is a solid card. Stoke the Flames, no potential on its own. It has to combo up with other stuff to deal the final damage to the opponent. Can't get there on its own. Dean is a neat one. She needs synergy for the life gain, life loss. And then she needs creatures to sacrifice to boost her power. So you need kind of a life gain deck and or an aristocrat sacrifice kind of deck to really get Dina to, kill the opponent. The thing that's cool about Dina is the threat of activation is just how much damage she could do to them if they let her through unblocked. So, Dina's a sneaky one. Dina's better than she looks. Rampaging Geoderm's a great card. It gives out its benefit whether or not it attacks. So it doesn't have to be the thing that's attacking in order to get the +1/+1. And if you do have battles in your deck, you can give permanent boosts to your creatures, which battles are kind of funky. You take a turn off, right, to attack the battle, and that's damage you didn't do to the opponent's face. But if what you get from it is going to help quicken the clock against the opponent, that can be more valuable than if you just hit them the one time. In the Geoderm's case, you permanently boost a creature, which makes it more able to attack the opponent or your battles. And it makes it a permanently faster clock for the rest of the game because of the counter on it. Anyway, this card is just... At its baseline, it's already kind of above rate because it can attack as a 4/4 trample haste for 4. which means the clock could be by turn 8, I think. Just 4 more turns after the turn you play it because of the haste. And that's good. That's a very good clock. But it does even more than that. So yeah, this is a very dangerous card here. Intervention, very low potential. It puts a +1 counter on a creature, so it gives a permanent boost. You could treat it kind of like a 1/1 with haste for 2 mana. The reason you would run this is not for its potential, it would be because you have something really valuable you want to protect. It can, give something protection in order to not be blocked, which might be able to get you in the lethal attack you need to win the game. It has more than 0 potential, but its potential is low. Eyes of Gitaxias. This is another interesting one. So it's 5 total mana to get a 3/3 and draw a card, but in terms of potential, you play this turn 3, on turn 4 you flip it and you can attack, just as if you'd gotten the 3/3 down last turn already. So it's got the same speed as a 3/3 for 3, in terms of its clock, which is 7 turns. That'd be a turn 10 kill. And it drew you a card in the process, which is hard to argue with. So it's just a really solid, fair card in general. Tidal Terror. This is on rate. It's about what you want for 6 mana. So it doesn't have 6 power, but a 5/6 is a good body. You can island cycle it, and you can tap 2 creatures to make this unblockable. And unblockable is obviously very good. It can help you just immediately flip a battle. Can get you in the damage you need to win the game. It's a good on-rate square deal of a card. Etched Familiar. It's got about the same clock as a 3/3 for 3. 2 toughness means it's less likely to be able to attack in. It means at some point it's going to die. The Drain 2 does mean that if it dies, you could take a turn off the clock. Right? Normally, 6 attacks with this will deal 18 damage, but if it dies, then that would deal the last 2. So that would be more like a turn 9 kill, instead of turn 10. So overall, it's alright. Beat Stick's alright. Burning Sun's Fury does not win the game on its own. It's a helper piece. Placid Rottentail. Slow clock on the front side. You can exile it from your graveyard to put 2 counters on a creature at sorcery speed, so that's kind of like a 2/2 with haste for 3 when it's in the graveyard. So that's kind of cool. You get the value of the 1/1 for 1, which granted isn't much, but then you also get this, kind of like 2/2 with haste for 3, but it's better than that because it makes your creature bigger, and the bigger a creature is, the more able it is to crash in, and it's harder to block, etc. This card's not terrible. This is definitely playable. I'm not going to pick it real highly, but I think it's pretty fair as 1-drops go. Better than it looks. Flywheel Racer. Vehicles are a little funky. So a 3-power creature for 2 is a very fast clock. That's 7 turns. So turn 9 kill, which is pretty good. Pretty good. But it takes the potential of one of your other creatures to turn this on and use it. And if you have a deck with too many of these effects in it, like same as the Ozolith. If you have an Ozolith and then a Flywheel Racer and then a Beamtown Beat Stick and then an Angelic Intervention, at some point, if you get too many effects like that, you can't keep counting them as having the same potential a creature would have. Because if they whiff, if you don't have a creature to put it on, if you don't have a creature to activate it, then suddenly it's just terrible, it's useless. It has potential drops to 0. So you have to be careful about that when you're building the deck. It can also tap for any mana, any color of mana, if it's a creature. This is pretty useful. It's better than it looks. A lot of people really don't like this one. I think it's fine. You know, kind of fair to middling. And then Mana Fixer. Okay. So there are some great cards here. Hard to say what the best pick ought to be. As far as the potential goes, I'd probably narrow it down to the Geoderm, the Guardian, and Norn's Inquisitor. I think those are the ones with the highest potential in this pack. Geoderm keeps our colors open about as much as taking one of these white cards does. Maybe a little less so because we're not sure about green yet. We would definitely like to use the Ozolith if we can. I feel like, let's see, counters on an artifact or creature you control. So that would work with incubator tokens. Would work just fine. I think I'm going to take the Norn's Inquisitor here. It's very flexible. Keeps our options open. I think I like this as a stronger card compared to the Sunblessed Guardian. I think it's roughly on par with the Geoderm here. The Geoderm really does its best work if you have battles, which is a deck building consideration. And I think the Norn's Inquisitor is just, I mean, they're both good on their own. So I guess it's just kind of a, you know, question of preference. I haven't done the green-white counters deck really that much. Oh, well, if I'm going to do the green-white counters deck, there's a Kami of Whispered Hopes. If one or more counters, +1/+1 counters, would be put on a permanent you control, put an extra one. And then this taps for mana of any color where X is its power. So, and actually, the Kami plus the Ozolith would start putting 2 extra counters on things. That would be kind of obscene. And it's, yeah, this one's on artifacts or creatures, this one's on permanents. They would both affect incubator tokens. As far as measuring the potential of Kami of Whispered Hopes, this is a synergy card. It's really difficult to measure the potential of a synergy card until you know more about your deck. As long as you've triggered this once, you can call it like a 2/2 for 3 that taps for mana. If you trigger it twice, you can kind of call it a 3/3 for 3 that taps for mana, with the exception that it's actually making creatures that are already kind of big even bigger. So rather than it being the threat itself, where you're trying to determine if a 2/2 for 3 or a 3/3 for 3 is good, it's making the team bigger, and the team might have been big to start with. So yeah, it's really hard to measure the potential on this card. But it's a synergy piece, it's a ramp piece, it's a color fixer. Overall seems pretty good with what we've taken so far. Storm Sculptor is good for the Convoke deck. Red-blue is a Convoke archetype, that's what they really like to do. I don't think I'm going to take it here with what I've taken so far. Skywarden might be nice if we end up with more incubator tokens. Just as a Windrake on its own, it's kind of, you know, it's a fair card. It's not that exciting from the standpoint of potential. But if we end up with Phyrexian benefits, or if we end up with incubator tokens, either one of those could make this a good synergy card. The Lookout has no potential until the opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. Then it can't be blocked. So its clock is slow, and you have to turn it on before it gets a clock, but then the clock is kind of inexorable. They can't stop it, they can't block it. That's neat. Overall, I'd say it has low potential, but yeah, it's a good synergy piece. Good early game blocker, good late game attacker. None. Low, 3/3 for 4s, not the best. The surprise counter and lifelink is neat in a damage race situation, but you're not always damage racing. Sometimes you're just trying to get the opponent to 0. And if that's the case, the life gain isn't helping you. Very often it does help you, but there could be a situation that comes up where they have, like, Realm Breaker, and they're milling you out. And they're milling you very quickly, and the life gain doesn't matter, you just need to deal damage to them. And the clock on this is very so-so. So it's a little below rate. Searing Barb has low potential. It doesn't incubate 1, which means it does create a 1/1 creature. It has more than 0 potential. It can make a thing unable to block, so that could get you into flip a battle or win the game, if that's all you need to do. Most of the time you're going to use it as a removal spell, and that's fine. It's kind of not great at any of these roles. It's just kind of so-so. Cosmic Hunger is a nice, strong removal spell in green. It has no potential to win the game on its own. Skittering Surveyor has very low potential. This is a synergy piece for a multicolor deck. A very good one, I might add. The fact that it comes with, card advantage, mana fixing, and a body, and the body has at least more than 0 potential, that's cool. Urn of Godfire, no potential. It's a mana fixer and a removal spell. Okay, so in terms of this pack, it would probably be between the Sunblessed Guardian and the Kami. Sunblessed Guardian definitely has a good clock, but the Kami has the synergy that I'm looking for. So I'm actually going to make a synergy choice and see if I can get the potential out of it. Emery requires a lot of artifacts, and this set does not have a lot of artifacts. She feels very out of place here. Aerialist is a very powerful card. Very, very powerful. It would be enough to make me consider moving out of white-green, except the Invasion of Moags in this pack. Glistening Deluge, no potential, just kill stuff. Bromosian Greatsword, decent potential. Costs quite a bit of mana, but you can convoke it. It's hard to measure the convoke when you're measuring potential on a card. If we go with the reasonable assumption that you've got a deck that goes like 2-drop, 3-drop, that's a pretty reasonable assumption. Then on turn 4, you could convoke this out, maybe still have a creature untapped that you could attack or block with. Turn 5, you can equip this and start swinging in with 3 extra power, 1 extra toughness, which does make your creatures more able to attack and survive, and trample, and the trample is really nasty. So this going on a 1/1 token turns it into a 4/2 trampler, and that's a big deal. I could even go on a 0/1, and those do exist with the backup creatures. You could put this on a 0/1 and turn it into an actual threat. Or you could put it on something that's already big, like a Rampaging Geoderm or something like that, and it just becomes enormous. Now you could maybe convoke this out sooner, but I think turn 4 is maybe a reasonable assumption. Then you can equip it to something, and it's going to, starting turn 5, going to give you an extra 3 power on the board with trample. The clock isn't the best, but it makes those creatures much more likely to connect with your opponent or the battle they're attacking. And even if things are trading off in combat, damage may still be going through from the trample. Overall, I think it's a fair deal. I think it's not that exciting, but the benefit it gives is a big boost. So, Invasion of Moag, that's probably what we're just going to take here. Puts a +1 counter on each creature you control. We've got a +1 synergy theme already popping up here. Norn's Inquisitor already represents 2 bodies, which is nice for cards like this. The more bodies, the better. And then doubling up the counters, or even tripling them, is ridiculous. Make the creatures gigantic, swing in, get the Bloom Wielder Dryads, and then you get this 3/3 with Ward 2, beginning of the end step, puts a counter on something. Again, if you can put more than 1 counter, then that creature becomes ridiculous. In terms of the clock on this, battles are hard to gauge. They're very hard to gauge. Let's see, if you had like a Norn's Inquisitor on turn 2, you flipped its token on turn 3, and on turn 4 you played Invasion of Moag, then that would just be a boost from like 4 power total to 6 power total, which would be enough to flip this invasion. And that would get you to then 9 and 10 power. But if you went like Norn's Inquisitor, Kami of Whispered Hope, that would get you to, let's see, that would make them both 3/3s. That would make it 6 power. Could still attack and get this, and then you'd get 11 power because you'd double up the counter from the Dryads. It's hard to measure. It's hard to gauge. I think it's very good here, though. Infected Defector, it's a little below rate with the 3 toughness, 4 power for 5. Dying and giving you Incubate 3 is a pretty nice payoff. But still, in terms of just the clock that you get, it's not that fast. It's not that fast of a clock in terms of potential. It does have some staying power, though. And that's nice. That's more of a card advantage thing, I think. Kithkin Billy Rider. I mean, okay, potential does like it when you still have something left behind that threatens the opponent when it dies. So it's more than nothing, but it's it doesn't quicken the clock, I'll say. Billy Rider does work well with +1 counters. Once I've got enough of these other cards in the deck, I might start wanting to pick these up, because they'll deal twice as much damage with the +1 counters on them. At the moment, though, I want to make sure that all of that stuff is in place and working before I start picking up the Billy Riders. I'm going to take the Invasion here. The Scab is decent. If you have spells, and there are spells in here like Eyes of Gataxias that make creatures and then draws you a card, this going on top of the library with the card draw, it means it didn't like set you back a card. It actually did like get value from it, and then you also got the 3/3. Or you can, get back a good removal spell. If you have those synergies built into the deck, this is going to be a pretty good card for you. A 4/4 for 5 is very forgettable. But if you get back a good instant or sorcery or a battle, then he's pretty good. Moment of Truth, no potential. It's kind of a synergy piece. Javelineer, pretty good. 5 power for 5 is what you want. Square deal. 5/4 with reach. The reach is nice. Defends your life. And if he can't attack, you can just tap at the end of the turn to either shock the opponent or shock a battle. If we were in Tarkir, maybe he could shock a Khan. Anyway. Yeah, he's good. He's a 4-turn clock on his own. but if you need to tap them to ping stuff, very useful in that regard as well. Solid card. Portent Tracker, this is a ramp spell. Also can muck with battles, which is nice. But this is a ramp spell. And if you want to unlock the potential of higher mana value cards, this is a synergy piece. You need to run ramp pieces as synergy, even though it doesn't have much potential on its own. It has more than 0, and it has power, it has a body, can ping battles without having to attack. But it's a synergy card. In this case, we're going to take Invasion of Moag. See if I can get a white-green counter stack together if it's open. Let's see, I'm still seeing white and green cards here, so that's nice. The Knight goes wide, which would work well with the Invasion of Moag. More bodies is also useful for things like the Ozolith. Escort's just kind of generally useful. It's maybe more of a black-green synergy card, but it's just generally handy. Not bad at all. Tiller of Flesh, whenever you cast a spell that targets permanents, you incubate. This could work really nicely with Norn's Inquisitor. You know, transforming the tokens into Phyrexians. You start making more tokens. Making these tokens, they'll get extra counters from these cards. But that's only if there are spells in the deck that target permanents. So I'm not sure if I'm going to find that or not. You know, and if I might have to run something like Atrax's Fall, which is a little questionable, in order to trigger the Tiller of Flesh. Tiller of Flesh it's a blocker at least. It's a 2/4. It represents a decent blocking presence on the battlefield. If I can get this value out of it, though, if I can trigger it once, let's say, that would give me 4 power and 6 toughness, maybe more, with the synergies in the deck. So if I trigger it once, I've gotten something above rate, I think. If I trigger it more than once, then it's stellar. It's like a Chromho Seed Shark if you trigger it more than once. Let's see. So the potential on the cards in this pack are kind of low. Tiller of Flesh is neat to think about. Knight is probably the safe choice. Just, you know, 4 power, 4 toughness, 4 mana. Might get extra value out of the Invasion of Moag. And then the Escort would be a reasonable choice here as well. I'm going to take the Tiller of Flesh and see if I can find a way. Ooh, Invasion of Lorwyn's a very strong card. It would be worth splashing black just to run it. We'll think about it. Barrage has no potential. Bond Warden has very low potential. It does work with the +1 counter theme. I have not been very impressed with it so far. But, I mean, if we're going to pile things like pile counters onto it with an Ozolith or something, and then when it dies, its counters move somewhere else, and then you get even more counters because of the Kami and the Ozolith, I guess at some point the synergies might stack up to the point that the Bond Warden's good. So, maybe. Let's see, Tiller of Flesh is worded whenever you cast a spell that targets 1 or more permanents. So, not abilities. Aetherblade Agent's a very strong card. Not in our colors currently, it'd be going into black. But comes down on 2, can trade up with other bigger things. Once you get to 4 mana, you can flip it. You get a 3/3 Death Toucher that draws cards whenever it deals damage to players or battles. This card is better than it looks. It already looks decent. But if you're sitting across from it, you basically cannot allow the opponent to connect with you or with a battle. It is a must block, must deal with card, and that means that you have to be cautious with your attacks. It means you need to be cautious about getting blown out in combat. You know, if you have a removal spell, that's great, but if you don't, this is kind of a headache, because you always need to be respecting the fact they could attack in with this. Sometimes you'll just trade with a 3/3 and the opponent will not have anything, but this card is pretty good. No potential. No potential. Pretty good in the Convoke deck. If you can reliably get Convoke, then this card's for you. If you can't really Convoke very much, then it's kind of so-so. War Historian, square deal, right? 3/3 with reach is a good body for 3. 7 turn clock to kill the opponent. It's a turn 10 win. Very reasonable as a 3-drop. The reach is relevant to save your life. And indestructible if it attacked a battle, that's more of a deck building consideration, but if you get this, you have a battle, and then you play a rampaging Geoderm or whatever, this guy can attack in, get a counter on him, and you know he's going to survive because of the indestructible. He's really good in that archetype, and just fair outside of it. So, the Bond Warden here would be kind of, you know, going maximum synergy, I suppose. Just maximum synergy on the +1 counters. The Invasion of Lorwyn is just a generically strong card. Just generally good and worth splashing. I think I need to listen to the potential of this card, because it turns into something that has power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control, which is going to be at least a 6/6. So it's already on rate. It can keep growing. You know, if it grows to 7, that speeds up the clock to a 3-turn clock. If it grows to 10, then that's a 2-turn clock. And it comes attached to a removal spell. That's very good. Okay. Blue is looking pretty open, which is unusual. It's strange to see Afara's Dispersal this late. People really love this one. This is a decent 2-drop. Can flip into a 3/3 that's hard to block. Isaac Ataxius is good. Yeah, it's a little strange to see blue open, because blue is very strong. So we could take the knight. Would be reasonable. Portent Tracker is really good in a base green deck. Just helps ramp your mana. Can ping down battles. It's just generally useful all over the place in a green deck. Blossoming Sands would be a good mana fixing synergy piece for the deck. I'm going to take the Portent Tracker here. Keeping my eye on blue, though. Okay, there's still some decent blue showing up here pretty late. Oh, Blighted Burgeoning. Blighted Burgeoning's really strong. I do love the Ravenous Sailback, but once you have a Portent Tracker, a Blighted Burgeoning becomes a really nice piece for the deck. Serpent Blade Assailant would be playable here too. The Death Touch is useful, the backup is useful for the +1 counter theme. But the Incubate token on the Burgeoning still fits with the theme here. And it works very nicely with Portent Tracker. Could help fix mana for splashes, like black. So, yeah, I'm going to take the Blighted Burgeoning here. Invasion of Vryn. It was quite late to be seeing an Invasion of Vryn. Alabaster Host Intercessor is a heck of a card, though. As I said, it is removal attached to a body. I liked that about the Invasion of Lorwyn. I also like it about the Alabaster Host Intercessor. So I'm pretty sure I take this here. It's actually very late for this to be going around. If this wasn't in the pack, this would be between the Invasion of Vryn and the Timberland Ancient, and that would be a tough call. But since the Intercessor's here, I'm just going to take him. Alright, I was saying earlier that the Guardian has a very quick clock once you get it flipped over. So this is a totally reasonable creature here. This does give a +1 counter, which would work with the themes of the deck. Actually, Angelic Intervention would also work with the Tiller of Flesh. That would be a spell that targets something. I mean, it's not that hard to get 2-drops. This is a pretty good 2-drop. And the backside does copy the counters that are on it onto the token it makes. The token sacrifices at end of turn. So this does pick up synergy from the deck. It's not dead on the synergy angle. The backside can be even more dangerous. Angelic Intervention is very interesting here too. The Rotten Tail's actually alright as well. Doing the 2 counters from the graveyard could also work with the synergies of the deck. This is actually a kind of a tough choice. I think it's between the Rotten Tail, the Guardian, and the Angelic Intervention. I think I would value the Guardian more highly than the Rotten Tail. As far as the Angelic Intervention goes, it would be nice to have a trick like this somewhere in the deck. I don't want too many. I think the creature, the body, is the safer pick there. Okay, Surge of Salvation. It's just kind of a trick. Has no potential. You know, it could be useful. Kind of like a counter spell. If the opponent has black-red, then it could just be like a blowout, like a fog. One-sided board sweeper. Could do a lot of things. But that's, you know, could do, maybe. And it doesn't do anything to kill the opponent. It also doesn't target things for the Tiller of Flesh. Urn of Godfire could fix our mana, but I think the Attentive Skywarden is a pretty good body as a 3-drop. I could have a source of Incubator tokens here. I'll take it. Okay, I usually am not lacking for things at the upper end of a curve when I build a deck. I think I'm going to take the Billy Rider because it would be very nice with +1 counters on it. Okay, Atrax's Fall targets things, which can work with the Tiller of Flesh. I think that could be pretty handy. To be fair, auras also target things when they are a spell on the stack. That's how auras work. So Crystal Carapace would trigger the Tiller of Flesh. I don't like that this is a 4-mana sorcery speed aura that the opponent could blow out with a removal spell. You can cycle it too, but I think I like Atrax's Fall better. Okay, we get the Bond Warden anyway. Might make the deck if we've got enough synergies. There's a Crystal Carapace. It probably won't make the final cut. Yarok. Death Touch, Lifelink. It would require... I mean, I've got maybe a black splash going, but a blue splash as well. Kami and Blighted Burgeoning can make mana of any color. It's a good body. If a permanent Entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger. Triggers an additional time. Permanent entering the battlefield. Permanent entering the battlefield. It doesn't say of another permanent, it says of a permanent, so I think it would count itself. So that should work with backup. That should work with incubate on this. Should work with incubate on this. Those are permanents. Should work with the triggers on the invasion of Moag. Should work with the Alabaster Host Intercessor. That would be nuts. That'd be nuts. Exile 2 things. Double up the triggers on this. That would be obscene. Okay, yeah, I've actually got some pretty good ETBs that would be worth copying on permanents. A little bit of a stretch mana-wise, but I do have green, and green is the thing that can get you your colors. Like, I don't know if I can go so far that I could splash things like Deadly Derision. But Yarok, maybe. Let's see, Into the Fire. No potential on its own. It's like it's a sweeper, can help you flip battles, can give you a redraw on your hand. Lancer has pretty high potential for the Knight deck. It's a square deal on his own, 3/3 for 3. But if you trigger this, you know, like once a turn for a few turns, then that gets you to like a 4/4 Vigilance, which is a really nice clock at 3 mana. It's above rate. This guy's really good in the Knight deck if you've got the synergies for it. Invasion of Kamigawa. This is kind of a tempo play here. Doesn't get rid of something of the opponent's, but it lets you get in for a couple of turns. Because it stuns it, so it keeps it tapped an extra turn. Then you can flip this battle into a flyer, and the flyer can draw you cards. It's better than it looks. It's actually not bad. Let's see. Sunder the Gateway is a card I would like to pick up for this deck, and it could trigger the Tiller of Flesh by targeting non-token artifact or enchantment. Cavalier is so-so here. We don't have the Knight synergies. It'd just be like a 2-drop. Rotten Tail I probably would like a little better than that. I think I'm going to try the Yarok here. I've got some mana fixers. Green can do it. And some of these ETBs doubling up would be pretty obscene. Thalia. A 2-power first striker for 2 is a pretty good defender. Not the worst attacker either, but a very good defender. Non-creature spells costing 1 more is kind of a wash, probably. Now we've got a mix in a limited deck. So it's hard to say whether it's going to punish us or the opponent more. So, yeah, I'm not too sure about Thalia here. Huntmaster's really strong, almost worthy of a consideration of splashing. Could just be kind of like a factory of 3/3 incubators that then get bigger because of the counter synergies. Aeronaut could be okay. The backup can do the +1 counter theme. I don't see that much else here that really excites me. I think Huntmaster is such a strong card here, and it would play so nicely into the synergies of this deck that could be worthy of a splash. I'm going to take the completed Huntmaster here. Let's see, Aura, Vehicle, Equipment, draw a card. Probably not. Unless there's just nothing else here, really. Corruption of Tawashi would be decent here. You know, it's starting to go into a lot of colors at that point, but if we're going to splash Yarok, this is a potent card for the Transform deck. It works very nicely with Incubator tokens, which we seem to have quite a few of. So this card could do some good work here. Halo Forager's a generically strong card that doesn't really fit the synergies of this particular deck, and it's kind of a long way to splash. If there was more, you know, instant sorcery removal that we were running, maybe. We got like a Traxxas Fall. Don't want to depend on the opponent more than you have to. I don't think this deck can really run this. Don't want to branch into red. Might be a bridge too far. The Scald is good, don't get me wrong. But I would need a bigger incentive to go 5 color than the Scald. Bond Warden's okay. Not real excited about it. It's okay. Not splashing this, or this. Or this. This is a night deck play. Ichor Drinker. Black is kind of a splash here. I don't really think I want to try to go in for that. Dreadship's fine. Again, I'm not going to go into red just for that. Fertilid's Favor, though. Fertilid's Favor can clean up the color situation. Can, you know, make sure we hit black for things like Yarok and Invasion of Lorwyn. And it goes with the counter theme. That would be a really nice inclusion here, I think. With this many colors, almost certain to make the deck. Unless we pick up too many copies. Corruption of Tawashi is a really nice card, but I think I want to make sure the colors are straightened out here. Alright, Invasion of Dominaria. This doesn't do anything special for us. It seems playable, probably. You know, it replaces itself, stalls with life gain. Eventually you get a big angel. Doesn't do anything for the +1 counters, it's just kind of generally neat, reasonable battle. Crusher doesn't do anything special for us here. We have some ramp. We don't have that much ramp. It doesn't do anything for the +1 counter theme, especially. Agar, not gonna splash for him. He really likes red damage spells. Or big creatures, I suppose, if they're giants or wizards. The intervention could be playable. Scroll Shift I don't like as well as the intervention in this case. Not gonna do the Squadron. Tidal Terror could be an island cycler, but I'm not that excited about it. I'm not gonna splash for Vanquish the Weak. Not gonna splash for a 2-drop. Blade Master would be fine. Nothing special synergy-wise. And Archivist is fine. Nothing special synergy-wise. Okay. Well, it kind of looks like it's between maybe the Blade Master and the Angelic Intervention. I was kind of wanting to pick up a copy of Angelic Intervention. I'm not seeing too much else in this pack. It plays nicely with the Tiller of Flesh. Can save something of ours that we want to keep alive. Could double or triple up the counters. So, we'll give it a shot. Oh, no. Maybe. Probably not. No. Oh, maybe. Blighted Burgeoning. I think I might like that even more than the Sentinel here. The Rotten Tail. Yeah. Blighted Burgeoning. And, 2 Blighted Burgeonings, more Portent Trackers might be cool as well. Oh, there's another Intercessor over there. Black is a splash, and I think I want to keep it that way. I don't think I want to go for these double black cards. They're good. Don't get me wrong, they're good. But you need to know your limitations when it comes to building a 5-color deck. If we were a core green-black deck, we could probably consider them. They're both strong, but I don't know if they're so strong they pull me away into these colors. And if black's more of a splash, then the Thalad's not nearly as good. If you can't play it on 2, you know, it's still reasonable later in the game, like you draw it on turn 5, flip it right away, but it's more of an aristocrats kind of card. The Intercessor's very strong. Sentinel would be fine here. 3-drop goes with the counter theme. Ichor Shade could vaguely go with the counter theme. This isn't really an aristocrats deck, but we could probably engineer ways for things to die to get counters on this, and then they could double or triple up. That would be amusing. But I think the Intercessor is such a generically strong card, and the plane cycling makes it useful early. I think I'd go ahead and take it. Inspired Charge I don't think I would make room for. No. Maybe. No. Okay. So it looks like a choice of green 4-drops here. So this one's more aggressive. They both do +1 counter things. This one's more aggressive. It's more for trying to punch in damage. This one, I think, is more defensive, and it provides 2 bodies in one card. This one does not. The Converter Beast, with providing 2 bodies, plays well with things like the Ozolith and the Invasion of Moag, where we could actually make the 0/1 contribute in some way. The 0/1 could also be useful if we run the completed Huntmaster. I think the Converter Beast has better play here than the Chomping Kavu. Oh my goodness, another Blighted Burgeoning? Let's see, am I getting too thick on 3-drops? Do I need a 2-drop? Let me think about that for a second. This is still just pack 2. Yeah, this is still just pack 2. I don't know if you can have too many Blighted Burgeonings. It's so good. Let's see, right now, I've got 1, 2... I've got 3 creatures that are 2-drops. I need to be keeping an eye on that. I want to make sure I have enough stuff to do in the early game. 1-drops can fill in for that purpose. So it's not beyond question if you have some 1-drops that you don't have to have all those 2-drops. But Blighted Burgeoning, on turn 4 you can have 2 mana open to flip the 2/2. Or you can just play this turn 3 and then, you know, you can suddenly ramp into bigger plays where you forget all about needing 2-drops. Or, you know, you could play like a 2-drop you just drew and a 3-drop, that kind of thing. I like the Blighted Burgeoning. I'm gonna take it. It's almost like it draws you a 2-drop with the Incubator. Okay. Lancer would probably be kind of out of place in this deck. You know, 3/3 for 3 is fine, but has no synergy with what we're doing. Okay, I was hoping I could get a copy of Sunder of the Gateway. It can work with the Tiller of Flesh. It's just a generally useful card, can be a 2-drop if you need it. Rotten Tail's fine too. I would probably play it main deck, but I really did want to have a Sunder of the Gateway somewhere in here. Happy to pick it up. Okay, War Historian or Aeronaut? Well, I'm starting to get a bunch of ramp. Right? I'm starting to get a bunch of ramp. And if I can jump from 3 mana to 5 mana, then it might behoove me to actually run more 5-drops in the deck at some point. I don't have a lot of invasions. I've just got 2 invasions at the moment, so the War Historian's, kind of so-so. He has reach, he comes down sooner, but just flying is better than reach. And Aeronaut actually works with the +1 counter theme. Okay, well, I could get this guy as a random 2-drop. Aura, equipment, or vehicle. Blight Burgeoning's Nora. Never mind. He's not random. He's synergy. He's a card draw synergy for this very deck. We are gonna take SRAM Senior Edificer for auras. Yep, that's what we're doing. Bond Warden would maybe be playable here, but yeah, we're taking him. Okay, funky choice here. Scroll Shift probably could give us a lot of value. The Archivist is a good body. I feel like I've got some really good stuff up at the 5-6 range already here. It's one of the strange things about the Archivist in this format. This is a playable card. If you were to choose this card and put it in your deck, I am fairly convinced that it would do reasonable work for you. 4-5 reach is a good body, and mucking with the graveyard is useful. You could turn off an opponent's blue-black deck, right? Just rip the card out from under their, flyer when they're trying to target it. Or if they're trying to reanimate a creature, you just put it on the bottom. Stops you from milling out. So yeah, between the sizable body and the relevant ability, I think this card is just fine. It's just that there's so many other strong 6-drop things to be doing that you never end up needing it. There's always something stronger. Anyway, I have so much ramp I could almost be thinking about the Copperhost Crusher here. Got a Portent Tracker, I've got 3 Blighted Burgeonings, I've got Kami of Whispered Hopes, I've got Fertilid's Favor. That's starting to be a lot of ramp. It really is starting to be a lot of ramp. But I think Scroll Shift would do about as good a work as the Crusher in this deck. I think there's plenty of things to trigger or save. Rotten Tail, for sure, would be more synergistic. Ichor Shade probably won't make it in, but it does have synergy with the deck. Okay. Yargle and Multani is double black pips. So far I haven't taken anything that's double black pips. Now 6 mana is late enough that you could probably work your way up to it. It doesn't do anything special in terms of deck synergy here. It is obviously a very dangerous creature, but I don't see a compelling enough reason to take it necessarily, unless this pack just kind of doesn't do much. We are still core white-green, with splashes otherwise. Black maybe being a deeper splash, we'll see. Dina would be okay, but not great here. It's not a lot of stuff for her to do. I've already got the Ichor Shade as a good sack outlet. I mean, sorry, the Huntmaster. Ichor Shade's a payoff. Invasion of Pyrulia. It'd be nicer to be able to get this on turn 2. Blue's more of a splash here. I mean, this could still be good later in the game. Could draw you a card that you could instantly play. Might be neat. But that's only really good if it hits a double face card. Eyes of Gitaxias would be okay, but so far there's just the tiniest blue splash here. I'm not gonna splash in for Drag Recycler. Vegetoast Doombringer would have more of a shot, I think. Converter Beast, I think, has more synergy with what we're doing. And I think I'm actually going to take the Converter Beast here. Okay, Huntmaster is strong. Elspeth's Smite, though. That would be a nice removal spell to add to the deck. Bolaslinger could be okay. I've got quite a few 4-drops, though. The Pest is really good. Pest is just kind of a generically useful card. Blossoming Sands would also be nice, but I think Elspeth's Smite is it's like a tool that I would like to have in the deck. It does play well with the Tiller of Flesh. For sure, I like this better than Cut Short. Yeah, I'm going to take the Smite here. Oh, Shauna. I mean, she's just big. She's in the colors, too. Yeah. Be a pretty nice 2-drop to have. I mean, you know, there's Overgrown Pest and stuff. I'm not going to argue with Shauna. If you're in green-white, if you can cast her, then she's a good card. I'm going to run her. Okay, there's a Bolaslinger, another Blighted Burgeoning. I think I'm going to take the Blighted Burgeoning here. Quinde is a double striker. We don't really have first strikers. We've got a double striker already. Geoderm's a strong card. Does add +1 counters to things. We don't have a lot of battles, though. I could probably make red at this point. With all these Blighted Burgeonings, I probably could pull off a 5-color deck, if I so chose. And I think the Geoderm probably is the strongest card in the pack for us. Okay. Fine. I'll take it. Oh, Sailback's nice. Sailback is a nice card. Nice to have the option for destroy an artifact or enchantment. Doesn't have to be a non-token either. There's another intervention. But ramping to 5 is something that the deck is going to be good at doing. So I think the Sailback's going to be probably a better choice here. Yeah, I think I like it more than these other options. Dismal Backwater would be okay, I guess. Invasion of Mercadia is not for us. Probably. We do have a Geoderm now, but no. This is like an early battle. Not that excited about it. Center of the Gateway would be good. I feel like this fits with a lot of the synergies in the deck. Yeah, I'm going to take the Center of the Gateway here. Seal from Existence. Oh, Lord. What a choice. I got a choice between another invasion of Moag and a seal from existence. Ay, 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 ay. Oh gosh, this is a rough choice. I think I take the seal from existence here. I feel like I've got a game plan, and it's already pretty much firing on every cylinder. Some more removal would not go amiss. Let's see, there's a bunch of red. I mean, we have too many playables at this point, I think. Probably need none of these at all. Yeah, I'll put the Invasion of Pyrulia on the sideboard, I guess. Oh, wow, I've already got 3 copies of it? No, in that case, let me take a Harried Artisan. Let's see, enchanted or equipped attacks. Rayav, not so much. Yeah, I don't think any of these are likely to make it in. I guess I could take the Slinger just based on the synergies. Billy Rider looks pretty good with +1 counters. We'll see. That was awfully late for an invasion of Kylum. I guess I'll put it in the sideboard. Skywarden looks decent. Oh my gosh, another Angelic Intervention at this stage? Alright. Oh boy, here we go. I don't know that it's necessarily worth splashing red here for the copy of Geoderm. Geoderm's a good card. It is, it's a very good card. The +1 counters really come into play if you have a lot of battles to attack. And I don't especially have a lot of battles to attack. It's still a good card. But not so good I'm going to blow up my mana base for red mana. So, that one can go. Now, the blue and the black I think I am going to splash here, especially at the upper end. I really like these. Ichor Shade's probably going to get cut. Huntmaster might stay. Huntmaster is a really powerful card. Crystal Carapace can go. I'm going to drop the Scroll Shift for the moment. Can come back to it later. I'm not real enamored of the 1-drops. I like the Smite. I usually don't like to run too many copies of effects like this that are like combat tricks. Having one in the deck can be really neat, so I'm just going to drop a copy of Angelic Intervention. Just run with the 1. I don't love Bola Slinger. I don't really love this Golden Scale Aeronaut either. I guess I'm going to drop the Atrax's Fall. I think it's like a reasonable playable card. I'm just overflowing with things that are really good in this deck. I feel like the Billy Riders are maybe a little greedy. They're just kind of like a card that's begging for a payoff and not providing anything themselves. I think maybe I'm going to cut the Billy Riders. Okay, folks, this is what I'm going to run with here. I know I'm probably going to get some dislike for running more than 40 cards in a deck, but I don't want to hear about it. I just don't want to hear about it. I like what this deck is doing. I like where it's going. And I think it's going to be pretty phenomenal. So, let's do this.